Welcome to the Two Chumps Football Podcast. You know who it is. That's Amo Calamino. I'm Chad Wilson, and we are here with you in this NFL playoffs edition. We're done with college football, folks. Well, the playing of college football, but now the games really start in college football. We'll touch on a little bit of that, but we definitely have got some NFL football to get to. What happened in these games last week, and then what are the ramifications of what happened in those games last week? As y'all well know, my friend here with this look on his face is a Cowboys fan. So he is not the happiest today. I am, along with you guys out there, very interested in his take. I am pretty sure I'm going to have to cut him off at some point because he could do a whole 2 hours on what the hell that was in Dallas last week. But we've got some things to get to. Harbaugh, will he or won't he go to the NFL? New coach success at Bama. Here's something we haven't had to talk about for almost 2 decades. There's a new face in Tuscaloosa. What are his chances of filling any part of those shoes of the great Nick Saban? Where does Bill land? And by Bill, we know who we're talking about, William Belichick. Does he get another job? If he does, where's that going to be? And then in talking about the NFL playoffs, what was more tragic, the Eagles or the Cowboys at the end here? Plus, we'll recap all of the action from last week. And of course, we will offer you our predictions for this round of NFL games coming up. We had a very splendid weekend last week. We definitely did that. It's playoffs for us too, and we definitely have our game face on. All right, so Amo, let's just jump into this thing. You sent me a text, it might have been yesterday or 2 days ago. It all runs together at this point. But you felt like Jim Harbaugh was just kind of pimping out these NFL teams to get a bigger contract at Michigan. And I kind of feel that way too. But Emil, it's not lost on me that Jim Harbaugh can be wildly unpredictable. So while I do 60-40 feel that that's what's going on here, I wouldn't be surprised if he's the new Chargers coach or he's in Washington or whatever the hell.
There's a couple things I read about that tell me this. One, he definitely wants to dance the NFL dance for a while because he's asking for his new contract to start like mid-February. But there's language in the contract that is saying that if he was to be disciplined, basically, or to be terminated, it has to be an arbitration panel. 3 people, not 1. So he can't be dismissed at the pleasure of the athletic director. It would be almost an NFL process, 3 people. And then there's something in there that with NCAA infractions, he wants language to say that they can't terminate him. What I'm getting at is I think he wants to be a college football coach. Now, I think he likes the attention in the NFL. And maybe if he ran into a situation that he was completely blown away, maybe he goes. But I'm not so sure he wants to do, like, if you look at these jobs, right? The ones that are definitely available, most of them, I'm going quick in my head here, are total rebuilds. Could he work with Jerry Jones if that job becomes available? Or with Jeffrey Lurie? Maybe. Maybe jobs like that would be more appealing to him in my mind because those teams aren't far away. You know what I mean? Like he might feel like, hey, I can get my Super Bowl and I'm not far away. I can step into this and kind of hit the ground running. But I mean, does he really want to go to I don't know, Washington, the Bears? I don't know. I just don't feel like I don't feel it.
Man, I got to push back on this because I hear a lot of people say this when they start talking about the job openings. And I'm hearing this put on a loop. All right. Like you're not the first person to say this. I hear this on the very small amount of times that I will see anything from ESPN. It's usually a clip. I cannot tell you other than a time when there was an actual game put on that I put anything on ESPN on, but I do get the clips on Twitter and the social media. And they say things like that, a total rebuild. They don't have a quarterback. There's things that got to be done. So-and-so would be better off going to the AFC South because that's just such a disaster of coaches, especially successful ones like a Jim Harbaugh, didn't get there by avoiding what might be difficult. So he might relish the opportunity to go to one of these places where there is a lot of work to do. Because in this day and age, Amo, where you can really get smoked when you come up short of expectations, sometimes it's good to enter into a job where there aren't a whole ton of expectations, especially if you're a program builder, which it seems Jim Harbaugh is. It might be better off to enter into, all right, so I'll just say this. If you go to Los Angeles, where the idea is you have this quarterback, so you have what you need.
Yeah.
We talked about this, I think, a little bit in last week's show. Listen, for all his greatness, this kid hasn't won there. He hasn't, like, sometimes there's bad coaching and the guy might be able to overcome. He hasn't won there. So maybe you're not as close as you think you are. So if I go and take the job in Los Angeles, the expectation is, 1 or 2 years, I should be in this thing. We should be playing for the championship.
Yeah, that's a good point.
He might want a commander's job, or he might want, man, what did we say was the bottom of the barrel? Atlanta, maybe, because you don't have a quarterback and you got the Riddler or the Joker or whatever the kid's name is over there.
Yeah.
So he might like that.
Yeah, no, I mean it's a fair.
And then it's a bigger thing if he does that and takes. I feel like he's competing with his brother. So if he takes something that no one thought could happen, and you go and take an Atlanta or something like that, or a Carolina, and you take that thing to the championship, well, I one-upped my brother.
Yeah.
So perhaps
I think, when the NFL, unless a team is consistently winning every year, and I'll hit that later when we talk about Dallas and expectations. When you start winning 12, 10, 11, 12 games every year, there's a consistency in the regular season that you say, okay, this team's a good team, right?
Right.
Where you got to be careful in the NFL with all this division stuff. Let's take the Texans, for example. CJ Stroud, great, going to win Rookie of the Year, right? We don't know they're going to be the same team next year. Now, the natural thing, everybody go, oh, they're young. They're going to get better. Maybe.
We've seen that before. And
they're also going to play a more difficult schedule, number one. They played a last place schedule this year. Next year, they're getting a first place schedule. So when they're out of conference games, they're getting the winners of the other divisions. They can play first place schedule. CJ Stroud, he may do the Joe Burrow and ascend. He may do the Jalen Hurts. Guy was in the talk for the MVP last year, 6 interceptions all season, through 15 this year. We don't know. My point is, I agree. I'm agreeing with one of your points. This foolishness of saying, oh, well, you go to the NFC South, and we don't know what the NFC South's going to be next year.
Yeah, I mean, Jacksonville might wake up and play the way they're supposed to.
No, I said the NFC South. I've heard that one. The AFC South this year was our joke. Oh, the AFC South. Well, Houston's 10-7.
Anthony Richardson comes back. Maybe he's that much better, and the Colts are super viable. Who knows what ends up happening in Tennessee? Maybe they get a great coach. Maybe Jim Harbaugh goes there. Who the frick knows? So yeah,
Nobody knows. I mean, so you that stuff. I just felt like, I think he's got it going at Michigan now, and he's a Michigan guy. Like you could tell he really relishes that school. He played there. It's a big deal to him. I don't know.
What about the flip side of this, though, Emil? We've got some new entrants into the Big Ten. Could there be the thought that this is the peak? I mean, I want to say, Emil, I cannot dig into the great mind that is Nick Saban, but I'm sure a piece of his thought process was, along with his age, was that this is going to get a lot harder with Texas and Oklahoma coming in here, and the way these schedules are going to get piled up, and it's going to be harder to meet and maintain those expectations.
I don't think he cares.
Harbaugh, we're talking about?
Either one. I think they're both realists. I think if you ask Nick or him, they'd rather play quality opponents every week, as long as the format.
That's what everyone's doing.
As long as getting the format for getting in the playoff is solid, I think they'd rather do that. I don't think they get jazzed going out and beating Kent State or somebody like that. I think everybody who watches, we could talk about that in the offseason. I think everybody who's a big college football fan has to recalibrate. If you go take a look at the SEC, the Big Ten, 9-3 is going to be a good season.
Can you live in a world where that's cool? Because
9-3?
the common fan, I notice when we have us almost, it's kind of what we had this season with the exception of Michigan, is that when we've got one loss and a bunch of two-loss teams and we don't necessarily have that dominant team, it's the feeling like, oh, this is just kind of a down year in college football, that type of deal. We need to have
One
that.
of the things that's always, as much as I love watching college football games, one of the things that's always made me follow the NFL more closely is I never cared for the college system because I think it's goofy. I mean, in the old days, your team loses one game, you might be done, let alone two.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's just not realistic if you're playing a good schedule. And if you're not playing a good schedule, who wants to look forward to a Saturday afternoon where, as a USC fan, enrolls UNLV? No offense, UNLV alumni
Right.
out there, but enrolls to the Coliseum UNLV. Oh boy, let me get my popcorn for that one at 10 o'clock at night. I mean, I'd rather a
You can
schedule.
live in that world of a bunch of 10 and 2s and 9 and 3s. You're
Love
good.
it. Love it. As long as we're using a system that actually says, hey, let's look at your schedule when we make this playoff bracket. Because for somebody who's in the AAC that went 11 and 1, playing Tulsa.
So what do you think is a good fit for Harbaugh? I'm not of the mindset that that's the Los Angeles Chargers. Tennessee's out there. Of course there's Atlanta, but I don't know.
I don't know. I think, I've heard them throw around Chargers and Raiders, but they're going to have a mutiny on their hands. It sounds like if Antonio Pierce doesn't get the Raider job, that doesn't sound like it's going to go well. And yeah, I'm not sure. Harbaugh's as squirrely as Mark Davis in a different way, so I'm not sure if that worked. I'm not sure he fits in Los Angeles. I don't know enough about the Washington owner. I mean, he owns other teams. Magic Johnson's involved in a small way, but Magic seems like he still wants to hang out in LA and watch Dodger and Laker games. So I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, the Bears, he played there.
Bears job's not open.
That's right. It's not open.
We keep trying to make it open. It's not open.
I'm sorry. Sorry, Matt. I don't know. I mean, I don't think if Dallas came open, I don't think he could work with Jared. I think they'd kill each other.
Yeah. Well, we're definitely going to have to get to that part. Speaking of college football and potential openings, there's no more potential openings here. As we know, Nick Saban called it quits while we were on air last week, by the way. That's really crummy timing by Nick. He should have checked with us first before he did that. He could have did it earlier in the day or, closer to the day. But yeah. Anyway, he's gone. And within moments, seemingly, we got a new coach in place. What is happening, though, Emil, our guys are hitting the portal really hard and fast. And I feel bad in that situation that's what's happening. You haven't even given this new coach a try. Even if...
But wait, let me ask you. Don't stop. Let me stop you. Why do you feel that's the case? Because it's not like they're bringing in some guy who doesn't have some credibility. I know his resume is short. He's only been at Washington a couple of years, but he's had success, got to the championship game this year. Why?
I think these players are attached to coaches.
Yeah.
I came to Alabama. I came to Tuscaloosa for Nick Saban. And Nick Saban's known to have a top-of-the-line staff. So, whatever players, a lot of the players that you got came in because they were attached to that good, really great coach that you have. The defensive back coach, you're perhaps their best defensive back coming back has announced that he's going into the transfer portal, a safety by the name of Caleb Downs. And, he pretty much came there for Nick Saban and the defensive back coach, Travaris Robinson, who has a really good reputation of developing and recruiting in this game. And he's gone from Alabama. He's headed over to Georgia. Now, I don't know if the kid's going to exactly go to Georgia, but he came for Saban and T-Rob, as he's called. And so when we have something like the transfer portal where you can hop in there easily and there's no deterrent, well, hey, I came here for one thing. That thing's not here anymore. I'm out and I'm gone. And I really think that's what's going on there because they obviously have not given the new coach a chance. And I don't know if they even care about the resume. The guy got Washington to the championship game further than your team got.
Yeah.
And It's for them
Not
to
to
not give
go, not to go Captain Obvious on you, because I know that's where we're gonna head with this. Is I don't envy this guy's where he's at. I think this is gonna be very difficult. In a lot of ways. I mean, he was a small school coach. He had a lot of success. Then he got, went to Fresno State. Not really a lot of notoriety. A year and a half there, I think he went 12-6. He came in mid-season, then he finished. They went 9-3. Washington scoops him up, and college football fans know Washington, of course. But again, Washington is kind of off the beaten path to a degree. I mean, if you're 8-4 at Washington, typically you're not getting fired. I mean,
right.
So he comes in, flies under the radar. He's got to beat Oregon. To his credit, he did. The others in that conference, USC was in a transition period. Riley came in, had a good year and an average year, so he kind of caught everything right and beat the one team he had to beat, Oregon. Now he goes to the SEC. He follows Nick Saban, and maybe the greatest, probably in our lifetime, college football coach.
I don't think that's debatable.
Debatable, right? And the conference is getting more difficult.
Right.
In comes Texas and Oklahoma.
And I don't know. He doesn't have Southern ties.
Nope.
As far as I know. So yeah, that's.
I mean, and he's in the spotlight. I mean, you could say, well, he was in the spotlight all year because Washington was near the top. It's different.
No,
Washington had lost.
If you didn't know, you're going to find out.
Yeah, if Washington lost 2 games at the end of the season, finished 10-2, won a bowl game, went 11-2, they'd be disappointed, but they'd still think this guy's doing a great job. That's not the case down there. I mean, the expectations are really high. So anything less than that.
I really hope fans understand what it is that you said, and what we've alluded to here is that the SEC is going to get tougher. Texas, obviously, a really good football team. Oklahoma is going to continue to get better, and they're in there now. And so the schedule is going to get tougher, and things are just going to get harder. And whether Nick Saban was there, there's another guy in there, it was going to get more difficult. And I hope they are going to grade him a little bit with the curve. But he'd have to be.
Listen,
he'd have to be tragic not to do well there this year.
The landscape of college football, if you really look at it, there's no way this playoff goes off the SEC and the Big Ten with at least 7 of those 12 teams being from those 2 conferences. Because I pulled up a schedule yesterday. I was looking at USC's schedule. I said, okay, we're playing next year. Opener in Dallas against LSU. Then they have somebody coming in. Then after that, road trip, Michigan. A couple weeks later, coming home to play Penn State. End of the year, we play Notre Dame. I mean, even if you have a really good team, you're not running schedules like that going 11-1. Chances are.
I am sitting here as you speak, just writing down teams from both of these conferences that I think will have a damn good chance of getting into the playoff. I'm already up to 8 in the moment that you said that. I'm already up to 8. Bama, Texas, LSU, Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon, USC. That's 8 out of 12.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
I'm sure I'm missing somebody.
I'll tell you what, I don't know what's coming back, but keep an eye on Washington, and I'll tell you why. They may have accidentally, and I don't want to say, I shouldn't say this, but I'm really impressed with the Arizona coach. I watch a lot of Pac-12 football, and I told you early last year, they got something going on there. Now, I don't know if they caught things the right way or if the quarterback got hot, but from what
the quarterback got hot because, things were tragic at Arizona there for a minute, but we do have to give Jed Fish credit for building that thing up and getting a quarterback like that. Now, does the quarterback go up there with him is the next thing.
Right. And I mean, I'm just saying, so what I'm getting at is you got those 2 conferences. You probably, if we sat here, really did a deep dive.
But time out, Emil. I want you to kick someone out of the playoffs right here. Bama, Texas, LSU, Georgia, Oklahoma, Michigan.
Well, I could kick Oklahoma out depending on what their quarterback situation looks like.
They'll get a guy.
And we'll see. I don't know what LSU has following Daniels, because he
It's
was
Brian Kelly, and his guy just won the
yeah,
Heisman. He'll get a
yeah.
guy. Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon, USC, Washington.
Kick USC out.
Well, they're going to fix that defense, aren't they?
They should. They brought in some. They brought in some real defensive people. I mean,
And we've got
NFL
12
guys.
slots. We've got 12 slots. So,
Yeah.
Emil, I just named 10 legit.
Yeah.
We have some question marks, but you're right. And what does the public do if it's 10 out of 12 teams?
Well, I mean, listen, I'm a USC fan. I read you some of USC schedule. You can go read the rest of it. If USC went 10-2 in that schedule, you can't keep them out of the playoff. You can't
You're
play.
in. Yeah,
You
no,
can't
you're
play
in.
LSU, Michigan, Notre Dame, Penn State, and if you go 10-2, you're in. You have to be.
Yes, and look, there's still the Ole Misses out there that could do something wild.
Ole Miss is going to be a top 5 team when the season starts.
Yeah, there's
top 7.
There's definitely that, and I'm probably missing a name in the Big Ten. Maybe Wisconsin comes back to power. Maybe Iowa figures out a way to keep winning with 10 points a game. Who the hell knows?
Sure. No.
Yeah, it's going to be wild.
It's going to be interesting, and people are going to have their head explode in the Big 12 and the ACC, because they're going to be like, we're only getting one team, or maybe, the ACC slides 2 in some year of Clemson, Florida State, or Miami. But they're not going to get 4 and 5. You can't, because these other conferences have so much talent.
By the way, we got a quarterback. And by we, I'm talking about the University of Miami. Kid from Washington State's coming in.
Yep.
And the reports are really good. And I felt like that's a big part of what was missing last year, a quarterback. So it's going to be interesting to see just how much this young man elevates the program coming in, because you just want to feel like you always have a chance.
Well, the listeners know who these two homers want in that playoffs.
Of course. So that's going to be fun to watch. That's more of stuff we could talk about as we head deeper into the offseason. Sliding back to the NFL, Bill Belichick hung it up. It wasn't just Nick Saban. It was just a week of legendary coaches getting out the door. Bill Belichick, I said hang it up, but that's not. He just had a parting of ways, because Bill's on interviews, and apparently most recently interviewed with Atlanta. Emil, in your gut, because you're allowed to have one now at this age, and you've been watching football and following it for a while. Do you think Bill Belichick ends up on another team this year? And if so, who would you have as one or two?
I'd be shocked if he doesn't, because I think, at 71, if he takes a year off, he might say, this is pretty good. I like it. And so, I mean, I think he's going to be one of these guys, nervous energy. He's a young 71. The guy wants to work.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he's going to coach. My gut tells me he's smart enough, and this is not to be offensive, but to not take an Atlanta job where he's searching, trying to figure out quarterback. I don't know. Does he really want to do that again? He just did it for 4 years with the Patriots.
Well, if he's just going quarterback, are we talking the whole Justin Herbert thing again? And can you see Bill Belichick in Los Angeles?
Here's my gut.
He of the cutoff gray sweat top?
No. My gut, and could be totally wrong, and it'll tie a little bit into our next segment. Somewhere Jerry Jones's plane is parked on a tarmac, and he's having a conversation to gauge if they can work together. Because a couple things. One, Belichick.
So many lies would be told in a meeting like that.
Well, Belichick and Jones actually do get along. I've read several articles about him and his son, and Belichick's said nice things about the Jones family as the Patriots coach over the years.
Oh, come on. They're not working together.
My thing with Bill Belichick is, I think Bill Belichick, and what fans have to realize is, Bill Belichick, the coach, was still a good coach. Bill Belichick, the GM, stinks. Couldn't draft players. They as Bill Parcells, his old boss, famously said, he picked all the groceries. The groceries were spoiled, okay? But if you really look at the parts of the New England thing that were in his control, they still had a really good defense.
Sure.
I mean, a really good defense with an offense that didn't help them. I mean,
constantly on the field, that type of thing.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the guy can still coach, and it all depends on how stuck he is with the control thing, or if he's kind of at the stage like, yeah, I want to win again and show that I can win without Tom Brady.
Hmm.
And I'm okay with a structure that has some shared power here. And, I don't
And
know.
therein lies the reason why I asked you that question. You're going to go now from doing something, or at least potentially doing something that you haven't done in how long? How long would you say? At what point would you say in the dynasty that Bill Belichick sees absolute and total power?
I mean, it had to be by 2010, I would say.
So we're talking over a decade at least.
Yeah.
Uh, and now at 71 years old, how many 71-year-olds do you know that can pivot? You're now
Yeah.
going to say, I'm going to answer to a GM, and we're going to have a draft, and the GM's going to want a guy, and I'm going to want another guy, and that guy's going to tell me who's playing for me. That's what
Well,
makes
that becomes the selling point, then becomes, he'd have to understand, in my specific example, their process. Okay. So, they have a well-regarded player personnel guy named Willie McClay, who everybody tries to hire as a GM. And
Mm,
he's got Jerry just waves the magic wand. That's the pen,
mm,
the checkbook.
mm,
And Willie likes it in Dallas. He's been there for 20 years. So
mm.
he'd have to understand that process. And if he could work with the guy, I'm not saying he could, or I don't know. All I'm saying is if it were me, I'm having that conversation because it's
Oh,
an
that's
easy.
definitely got to be a part of the conversation. And if it's not brought up by the owner or the general manager, it's going to be brought up by
No,
Bill.
I'm saying you ask Bill specifically, if it's me and I've got the most valuable sports franchise in the world,
Mm.
I'm doing myself and my fan base a disservice if I'm not sitting at least talking to this guy to explore, is there some way to work together? Because
Yeah,
he
I
is.
feel Amo like that's going to be the major sticking point, and that could potentially keep him out of coaching, at least this year. Maybe a year sitting on the sidelines, and you say he does get that nervous twitch energy. He may be more willing to say, "Hey, all right, there's a GM, and I can cede power to the GM, especially in terms of personnel decisions, man." But it's not just the draft; that's the signing of free agents. That's the bringing in guys off the street that he didn't necessarily agree with, because Bill Belichick is still a scout. According to reports, he's still a guy that goes and watches everyone's games and watches guys who aren't playing. And he's going to have certain feelings about certain players, and he's going to want them in the building, and maybe they don't get signed. Or maybe he's watched, doesn't think a player's all that good, and the GM brings him in the building anyway, and Bill has
Well,
whatever relationship with a guy he doesn't want.
you and I both know that what I'm going to say next is, if you hired Bill Belichick and you didn't pay some deference to his opinion, then you're an idiot. And we
Sure.
both know that my owner of my team can be an idiot. So,
Yeah, it's just how much deference. It's like, how
right, because
far do we go?
what's interesting in this whole little twist, it makes this is what makes the NFL interesting. It's like watching a soap opera.
Hmm.
He's got a bat line, I'm sure, to his old mentor, Bill Parcells.
Right. But we
And he
haven't
could
seen
say,
much of anyway.
no, but he could say, hey, coach, how hard is it to work with this guy or not?
And we know the answer to that's going to be difficult.
I don't know. I read that they never fired Parcells. Parcells was just said he was done at that point after the 26-06
Well, you
season.
don't fire Bill Parcells, so
No.
they probably, I mean, you don't fire Bill Belichick. Either way, they're gone. So you came to a conclusion that we aren't going to be able to work any together.
Listen, it's an interesting plot. I don't know. There's certain jobs I don't see fitting him, but that doesn't mean I'm right or you're right,
Mm.
right? I mean, I don't see him, like you said, in Los Angeles. Okay.
No,
With,
just like
you
coming
know,
out with the sleeveless
uh,
sweatshirt. It's just not very
no,
LA.
and I mean, it's hard for me to envision him in Vegas. I mean, Seattle, maybe. But if you're Seattle, if you're going to get rid of a guy who's already had a ton of success there, as you're winning as coach, won a Super Bowl, probably should have won a
Emil,
second.
that's like I'd be shocked if he went there.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense because Pete Carroll, it's not like the Seahawks were crashing and burning. I mean, they were a competitive football team.
No, but I think the biggest problem there was just how much control Pete Carroll had in the building versus the GM John
Well,
Schneider.
Schneider made a point of saying
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I'll be picking the players.
Right. And so we don't want to hop back into that situation with an even mightier guy than a Pete
Right.
Carroll. So That's going to be interesting to watch. Well, you've touched quite a bit on your Dallas Cowboys. I don't know. I guess I know the answer that's going to come from you, but I really am more probably throwing that out to our viewers. What was more tragic here last weekend? The way the Eagles finished off their season and then eventually went out to Tampa. A team 6 weeks ago, you'd have said they would have just smoked right through those guys, or the actual way the Cowboys lost their game. And Emil, I just want to say this to you about the Cowboys game. I've already touched on this with you in text. I want to repeat it again for, our viewers, specifically the defense. The way that looked really looked to me like, man, perhaps Dan Quinn was taking interviews and maybe somewhat concerned with perhaps another job, because Emil, I've never seen a Dan Quinn defense that unprepared in a game. That just does not happen. I didn't recognize anything that was happening on the defensive side of the ball there for the Cowboys. It just seemed unreal.
Well, a couple points. Yeah, there could have been some of that. No doubt about that.
Yeah, it's typically the stuff you see in bowl games.
But here's what I noticed, the losing lets you, especially if you're a fan, you can really see things a little bit more clearer because you start putting patterns together. And at least that's what I do. I'm a logical guy. So, and I looked at what happened and I said to myself, well, if you really look at Dan Quinn's defenses, right, they're made to play from the lead. He gets smaller defensive ends with really good, get off. And if you're ahead, man, they're tough to play against because they're pressuring your quarterback. But if you look at a couple games this year, Buffalo did to Dallas what Green Bay did, only Buffalo on a rainy day chose not to use play action and throw the ball because Quinn spent an entire afternoon unable to figure out how to stop James Cook.
Mm-hmm.
So I see a pattern there. In other words, like LaFleur looked and said, wait a second. They can't stop the run. So if I can have some early success running the ball, I can do a whole bunch of other things. And I mean, it looked like Dallas, like you said, what was weird is there was throws in that game, and I'm not exaggerating, I could have made. Like there were 20 yards down the field and there was nobody there. I mean, it wasn't like, oh, there's a window. It was like there was a guy in a green jersey standing there and all the white jerseys ran away from him.
I fully expected Dak to take some heat. Of course. I just fully expected Dak to take some heat. And I fully expected that at some point Dallas was going to have to the rubber was going to meet the road on whether or not you cleaned up the holes with regards to handling a James Cook type of running back. I knew that would happen somewhere in the playoffs. What I didn't get, Emil, was how out of place some of the defensive backs were on certain plays. A tight end being wide open down the sidelines. It just seemed like something was wrong there, and hard to put your finger on it. All right, so
my problem all year with some of the things Dallas did, even when they were winning, I never liked the way Quinn, and I don't know if he just succumbed to pressure, the way he used Micah Parsons.
Mm-hmm.
To me, Parsons is a Swiss Army knife sort of player. The guy's a freak athlete who's 6'3", 250. So yeah, I know the defenses are different. Lawrence Taylor from our youth played the 3-4.
Yes.
But you weren't asking Lawrence Taylor to line up, put his hand on the ground and play defensive end. I mean, to me, it's like when you do that with Parsons, the smarter coaches, or at least I would think an offensive coordinator, you're going to run at the guy.
Mm.
You're going to give him some body shots. You know what I mean? Give him some rocky shots to the gut to slow down the pass rush later in the game. So I would like him to be used differently. But to me, the biggest thing that permeates, and something you texted, or a little group text, when you look at Dallas, the problem is top down. When any organization fails like that, it's a failure of leadership. And the reason I say it starts with Jerry Jones, you don't see other GMs in this league, John Lynch, giving quotes about, we really think we can do something this year. We really like the way things are lined up.
Stop
Jerry,
doing the interviews. Just stop.
yeah, Jerry
Line
has
them.
this, there's a confidence and enthusiasm that's made him the successful businessman he always has been. And he is.
Hmm.
It doesn't necessarily work in sports like this because when you got this confidence, and I think the Cowboys' problem as an organization is he permeates this, well, we're gonna do something. And then these younger guys, they have legends that are still walking around that place. Like Lurvin stops in, Troy Aikman's doing a game, Emmitt Smith, Charles Haley, Randy White, and they see guys that have all this hardware. They walk by those trophies every day, and they start thinking, I'm entitled to that. But you're not. You just play for the Cowboys. They gave you a helmet with a star on it. You haven't done crap. And that's just the feeling I get. And until the Cowboys fix the Jerry Jones problem, which is going to have to be a coach, Mike McCarthy has told you he's the Marty Schottenheimer of our generation. Marty Schottenheimer, good football coach.
There's a name.
Every year, this, tell the audience, 11, 12 wins. Did Marty not always win 10, 11, 12 games? Chiefs, Chargers, Browns. But he got to, that was it. That was where he was at. And you knew somewhere he was going to break your heart in a playoff game. That's Mike McCarthy. Not a bad football coach. The guy won 12 games 3 years in a row. But he comes out, he's got a passing team. Let's run 5 of the first 6 plays. Why? That's not how you got there.
Okay, so you clearly want Mike gone. Who would you love to see? Who would you love to see there as a Cowboys head coach? Look into the camera and talk to Cowboys Nation.
As squirrely as he is, I have to admit, I love the way Jim Harbaugh coaches football. Because your team's going to be tough.
Right.
You know your team is not going to back down. He's going to build up the offensive and defensive lines. And that's the way I'm a football fan that likes that crap. Okay. So in lieu of Harbaugh, okay, I could say Belichick's easy. Okay. I wouldn't mind getting Belichick. You know who I love? And you're going to laugh at me. I love Mike Vrabel.
I mean, it's along the lines of what you say you want. You want a physical.
I want a guy. He walks in the room when guys are talking about how good they are. He looks, listen, see this? I got some Super Bowl rings. You got 0. Okay. I got them. I'm sick of seeing the Cowboys come out in games like that. And in my opinion, be soft. They're soft mentally. Between their ears, the Dallas Cowboys are soft.
Understood. That's probably the prevailing opinion amongst.
Why you think I'm wrong? Because you seem like you're. I think
no.
I don't know if soft is soft.
Yeah, I don't know if soft is what happened there. Maybe just the way you got Peter rolled at home. That's just a real ugly look.
But don't mistake. I'm not saying they're physically. Listen, I'm not one of these guys who tells an NFL player they're not tough.
No, well, the mental.
I'm saying they're mentally. Things happen to us in life. You don't have to be an NFL player. You got a choice. Like Rocky says, right? Life will hit you. You're either going to get up or you're going to stay down. And when things go wrong for that team, they tend to stay down. And, you say what you want. Dak, really good quarterback, great regular season quarterback, great guy. That was not a performance an all-pro quarterback should give you in that game.
No, so let's slide to that. What would you like to see happen at the quarterback situation?
You can't. Well, listen, it doesn't even matter at this point. They have $60 million of dead money if they were to trade or cut Dak Prescott. That isn't happening. Okay, so I'm a realist. They're wed to him for 2 or 3 more years. And honestly, with the right coach, I don't think.
I was going to say that, Emil. So you want a physical, seemingly a defensive style guy. Would that be better for the Cowboys over, let's say, some type of an offensive guru, a Ben Johnson type that could come in and turn Dak's career around, at least from that standpoint?
If I own the Cowboys, I have to be realistic, right? If I'm the player personnel guy, I'm Willie McClay. I'm going to Jerry and say, listen, here's what we have in Dak. We have a very good, not great NFL quarterback. Fans who say he's trash are stupid. He's a very good, not great NFL quarterback, meaning if things are going right, you can win a Super Bowl with a guy like that. But he isn't going to fix deficiencies. He's not. If things get off schedule, he's not going to bail your team out. He's not Patrick Mahomes. I can go off today and that's it.
Mhm.
So you have to realize that and build your team accordingly, in my opinion. You need to have a physical offensive line. You need to be able to run the football so you can take pressure off this guy. If the game speeds up on him, especially in playoff games, he wilts. I mean, I'm sorry. The first pick I'll give him a pass on. Cooks got yanked from behind, and then Alexander just out-physicaled him for the ball. My question is, why are you throwing the ball to a tiny speed guy when you got CD Lamb over here? But that's a different question. The interception to the safety, you're 50 years old, 51. You would have caught it. You might have scored. The guy was surprised the ball came to him.
A bad read there by Dak, considering what was happening. Brain fart, let's say, which I guess you're allowed unless you're a Dallas Cowboy, and this is here we go again. So I guess that's the case.
Why do you disagree with? Do you disagree that team would be better served being built? When I say Dak friendly, I mean, listen, I need a team where I can run play action passes. I can open up windows for him. I can protect him. I don't want Dak needing to throw.
I would agree with you. Instead of trying to go wide open and say, hey, my specialized offense is going to take you to new levels, maybe not. I would say, let's just really make sure we're solid in all these other areas. The kicking game, defense, we can stop people. We can get the ball back to you. We can run that. We can shorten a football game when we get a lead, that type of thing. I tend to agree with you there on that. Emil, perhaps, listen, I'm sure.
You wanted to know who was more tragic at the end of the year, in my opinion, still the Eagles for the simple
me too.
reason.
Me too.
The Cowboys won 12 games. You and I both know we're old enough.
Yeah.
While I was saddened by the Cowboys,
you weren't shocked.
I'm shocked because
you weren't shocked.
Until you do something, I don't believe you can do it.
Yeah. Listen, I think we talked last week about what the Eagles were doing defensively that was just bizarre. Just did not make sense.
Nope.
Until we had watched the all 22 and like, hey, what's going on here? What are these guys doing? Why is this guy dropping here? How come guys don't know where they need to be? These are obvious mistakes being made by pros. We have two guys in the flat, no one in the curl window, and slants are being thrown easily by the Giants, by the way. And their seventh quarterback or whatever that was in the game, Tyrod Taylor. I don't want to take anything away from him. Solid quarterback in the league, but still, it's the Giants struggling, and you're doing that. Now we look at the offense. And well, I haven't looked at the all 22, but I got to look at Baldy's breakdowns. All right. And this is Baldinger. You know who I'm talking about. Emil, there's like 3 or 4 clips of Eagles wide receivers running into each other.
Oh, it's bad.
Then there are full-out blitzes coming with no hot reads built into it. And for the layman out there, a hot read is the defense is bringing more guys than you can block. And that means that your quarterback, whatever you think of your O-line and your protection, is simply just going to have a free runner at him. This is a guy they can't block. They brought 7. You have 6 in the block. That means a wide receiver needs to get the ball now. No hots built into it. And Jalen is looking at the back of all guys' helmets, running down the field. And now he must scramble it through. Like nothing's right on defense. What are you guys doing from Monday? Look, Sunday night when you lose a game, because you're on it right away. You get off that plane and like you can't sleep. What are you doing from Sunday night? You played on Monday. What did you guys do for 8 days? It's unbelievable.
I'll tell you,
I've never seen a schematic collapse like this ever. On both sides.
You've been to Philly, right? Nick Sirianni is the perfect coach for the Eagles.
Attitude-wise, perhaps
he's a wise ass.
Sure.
And you know what? Yeah, exactly. And that will catch up with you. Yelling at fans. Listen, you're the coach of an NFL team. You don't start taunting the other team's fans. They're fans. You know what I mean? They're fans.
You're not gonna win that. It's too many of them.
I won't name names because I have quite a few family and friends that are Eagle fans. And typical Eagle fans. I'm getting texts when the Cowboys are losing. Busting the Cowboys. And I'm like, at least we got a flag out of it. What do you mean? I say, because you're going to be gone tomorrow night. At least we got the flag for the division. Yeah. I mean, but that's an Eagle fan. You got to understand this fan base. This guy's perfect for them. They should make him the coach forever.
Emil, I thought there was a striking moment for me. I don't know if it meant as much to people out there as it did to me, but there was a time in the Super Bowl last year where something was going on in the game. And Sirianni was doing his motioning and gesturing, and just being a kid almost.
Yes, I remember you texted me during the thing.
And Jalen Hurts had to pull his hand down and be like, "Hey, knock it off."
Yes, I remember it because I specifically remember you sending me a text. Go, what the hell is he doing?
Well, yeah. Why is like he's not a kid? He's a grown man, but seemingly the kid, a young quarterback, having to play the adult in that situation, and it really probably was kind of a prelude of what was to come. Now, granted, you lost a couple coordinators. And it seems especially
before we go on to do our games now, because this is what people want. But
yeah.
I gotta ask you a question. What's your prediction? Is he getting fired or not?
Emil, with Dallas, as I feel Philly, I think that those things would have been done already. What's the point in delaying it?
I don't know enough about Philly. I can tell you. Do you remember when McCarthy got hired? We all knew Jason Garrett had coached his last game. He went 8-8 with the team that should have been in the playoffs in 2019. Took him a week.
So that's just his MO.
That's Jerry. You know, Jerry's probably doing one of his. I know Jerry. Oh man, we won 12 ball games 3 years in a row. What should I do? You know, I got to pay him for another year. I mean, 12 wins, pretty good. And Steven's going, but Dad, we only won one playoff game.
Yeah, might as well be 9-8.
Yeah, so Jerry's going back and forth, like, you know, what do I do? I don't know what the Eagles are doing. I have a feeling it's hard.
Maybe they're the same because, you know, after all, we were in a Super Bowl last year. They probably brought him in and said, "How can we fix this?" But Emil, you're tragic on both sides of the ball.
I think, man, I could be wrong. I think Sirianni has more rope because of getting to the Super Bowl.
I would agree.
Because he took a team that wasn't very good the first year, played Hurts, got him to be respectable, got into the playoffs, lost to Tampa. The next year he came back, got to the Super Bowl. So maybe
Emil, one or more of those coordinators are gone. Has to be. And then I'm wondering why that hasn't happened yet.
Well, you know, the old question in when you're changing a coach or a manager in any sport is, okay, who am I replacing him with? And that may be.
I'm sure there's a good amount of names for coordinators.
There are, but coordinators, you take the same risk. I mean, that's the thing. Everybody wants the hottest young coordinator, right? Everybody wants the guys from Houston and Detroit now. But
Emil, the receivers are running into each other.
No. Listen, I'm not saying but I'm saying when people want to hire a head coach, what's the natural? Let's
call me and you to go over there and fix things. You take the offense, I take the defense.
Bad.
What would be the difference?
No, it was bad. I understand.
Horrific. And guys in the know are watching this and be like, "Hey, this is Steve Smith. Steve Smith, for all of the crazy that he does on air, said this many, many weeks ago. This is a high school offense. And I don't really understand what it's doing in the NFL."
Well, you remember because you thought I was just being a hater probably, but I said I was dubious coming into the year. I said, let me see Hurts do it again. And I keep bringing up the RG3 example.
I'm not willing to put this on that guy.
But all I'm saying is in general, let me see him do, because remember, the high school offense kind of suited him last year because he was running and he was fit. Remember, I kept, how you run your quarterback 15 times a game? Mm-hmm. Well, at some point when they paid him all this money, he's either got to stop running or he's going to get hurt. And that's a problem. And I'm not sure he's a guy that can just stand back there and throw the football consistently from the pocket. So again,
I'd like to give him a shot without receivers running into each other because that's just not
100%. I'm not saying it's his fault. I'm just saying I was thinking of RG3 and said, listen, they came up with an offense for him.
Yeah, and then when it got real,
once everybody fit, and that may be the case here, or maybe it's not. Maybe you get rid of Sirianni and friends, and Jalen Hurts goes back to being an All-Pro.
I think the summary here is this is going to be one hell of an interesting offseason. The saga that is the NFL will continue beyond February and the Super Bowl. We'll have so much to talk about. Thanks for the content, guys.
Let's talk about the games because that's what people are here for.
Of course.
You know what we were last year? or last week doing the games?
Absolutely. 5-1. I ruined the party, but
5-1, 5-1. And you know what? For the season, you're a half game ahead of me. You're 62-42-2. I'm 62-43-1. Some pretty good handicapping. We're pushing 60% overall between college and pro. So how about we do this? Let's go through, let's take 5 minutes, not on each game, but 5 minutes. Let's go through every game. We'll go in order. If you have a pick at the end, say what your pick is. We'll talk a little bit about the game. I think the first game of the weekend is Ravens. Ravens Texans, if I'm not mistaken.
it is 4:30 Saturday
4:30 Saturday. I mean, tough
on
window.
on Tubi.
Good. It's weird. The windows are weird for me.
Streaming now on Tubi. It's the NFL playoffs.
Yeah, I didn't understand the windows. I figured the 49ers Packers would end up on Sunday, but it didn't. Okay, so we got.
Wait a minute. Over Chiefs Buffalo, they're gonna milk that, buddy.
No, I
Taylor
thought that
Swift.
I thought they may even do a 3 o'clock start there with them early, but I guess not. They can't because it's noon in San Francisco, so that's not going to work. So we got a 9.5 point spread here. You know, if I had to pick this game, and I'm not, I would take the Ravens, and the only reason is I really like Harbaugh as a coach. You can see I have a real affinity for the Harbaugh brothers. I think John is, you know, if you said to me the 4 best coaches in the NFL, I'd say Andy Reid, no specific order, John Harbaugh, and then I would say McVay and Shanahan. They're my 4 guys that I really think know how to coach football at this level. And you know, I like the Ravens, and you're giving me a look. So tell me why you don't.
Emil, I just have this feeling here. You see, like sometimes things get reversed a little bit when you get into the playoffs. We're going to take the Pittsburgh game out last week of the season, regular season. You know, no one played in that. It was rainy. It was a mess. No one cared. 56-19 versus the Dolphins. 33-19 at San Francisco. 23-7. I mean, it was just a blowout fest. And it just makes it real easy for an odds maker to come up with a line like 9.5. I mean, like, why wasn't it 10? Given those kind of scores, you know what I mean? Things get tighter. They get like there's so much expectation now for Baltimore. And you bring in a team like Houston that's house money, carefree. And their quarterback's too young to know the situation and the danger that he's in. This is like your 3-year-old walking out into the street and you get, you and the wife are inside paying attention to something else. They know not of the danger of a car screaming down the road and hitting them. And that's what CJ Stroud looks like to me right now. And what I'm concerned about is that Baltimore has a recent history of leaving out of the postseason before they should. You could blame that on whoever you want. I guess the majority of that will fall on someone, like a Lamar Jackson. And so the way Houston plays, the way Houston can get down the football field, shock you, get points fast, is going to be a problem, I think, for Baltimore. It would have been different if it was a Cleveland. You can go stuff Cleveland, you can smother them, you can get up early, and then you can just really run over them, pull the wave over them. But with Houston, they can get that ball down the field. And if we've got decent conditions there, we don't have wet and rainy or high winds, CJ Stroud in that offense is going to be able to operate some. I'm a little leery of the back end coverage for Baltimore. It can get a little loose there. I'm concerned about, especially on the edges with their corners. They can win some matchups there, get down the field. They can get up 7-10-0. And when they do, all of that recent history comes into mind. And then things are going to get tight. And that doesn't really lend itself to a complete rollover. Even if Baltimore gets up early, I like the ability of Houston to throw the ball around and get themselves back into the game. And that's why I don't like a spread this big.
What keeps me from is, so you're making this an official pick then, right?
I am making this an official pick. I'm going to take Houston with the 9.5 points. They're just too good offensively, decent enough defensively to hang within that number. Whether they get a lead early and hang on and it becomes really tight at the end, or whether they even fall behind and they throw their way back in it and come through a back door.
You got the Texans plus 9.5. I'm not making an official pick on the game because of the fact it's not so much about, I'm not a big believer, like, and I know I'm not criticizing you. It's a saying. They said it last week, the house money thing. Because anybody who's played sports, once you get to a certain point in anything, I don't care if you're in a basketball tournament, you think you can win.
Sure.
And you're not out there going, well, if we don't win, it doesn't matter. It's house money. We're in the semifinals. We got this
No,
far.
I think I'm speaking more to a carefree attitude of we are not expected to win.
Yes, I know
Maybe
exactly
we
what you
think
mean.
we can. We're not expected to
What's
win. Look
keeping
at
me
this
off the
point spread they
Ravens
put
here
up.
is they've got a little bit of cowboy in them lately. Okay. They find a way when they should be advancing to not advance. And until they show me that they've gotten that out of their system, I'm going to steer clear of this one. And
They
I'll root
could very well win the game 27-21. And the Ravens
for
advance, but that's still a point spread cover for me in terms of what we're
Oh,
talking.
9.5's a fat number here. So I'm going to root for the Texans with you. It's an official pick by Chad on the show here. He's got the Texans plus 9.5. We go to game 2 on Saturday, another 9.5 point line. We've got the 49ers giving the Packers 9.5. And I'm telling you, I'm making this a pick. I like the 49ers minus 9.5. I know Green Bay, and what Jordan Love did last week, but
You're not
that was
impressed by the team they beat.
Well, it's one thing, if you could sit here and say, wow, that was just amazing. He drove the field. They won 37-31. But, I don't know what we talked about a whole segment of I don't know what Dallas was doing last week, but those throws were not hard. And one thing I'm sure of with the 49ers, they're going to be prepared. They're a well-coached football team.
Sure.
They're going to be prepared. And I think if they get up in this game early, that's the thing. They took the ball against Dallas, drove right down the field. If they get up, that's going to become a problem because they have a hellish amount of pass rushers on the 49ers if they're playing with a lead.
Right.
So, that's just the way I see this game. I'm not a fan of either team as a Cowboy fan, so I don't really have a dog in the hunt. It's not like I'm a 49er fan, but I like the 49ers minus 9.5.
Yeah, I'm going the opposite way with you. I'm gonna grab the 9.5 points because I see almost the same type of situation. Young quarterback in Jordan Love, knows not the danger. They went into Dallas, tremendous amount of confidence built out of doing that. Maybe even a little more confidence than maybe that of what Houston was able to do. You went on the road, played in Dallas, where, listen, if there was one thing your Cowboys did this year, it was play ball at home. And they went in there and absolutely kicked the tar out of the Cowboys. Whatever the breakdowns may have been, whatever things we outlined, the truth at the end of the day is that they double digit beat this football team. And they're going to walk into San Francisco with a little air of confidence. And they've been getting exceptional play out of Jordan Love to the point of Emil, where you really start thinking, damn, man, was Aaron Rodgers really the problem there? Because I saw some really nice concepts. I saw some really good ways of getting guys open and taking advantage of things. Yes, Dallas had breakdowns, but some of that was
No, I think some of it was created. I think LaFleur
yes,
saw some
some of the
things.
ingenuity there.
Yeah.
The 49ers, I'm thinking about the 3-game losing streak that they had there. Yes, they were missing Deebo Samuels in that. And I'm thinking about how Brock Purdy played in that situation. I'm thinking about the way they got absolutely smoked at home by Baltimore in a primetime football game where they should have had their hats on straight. And thinking that, man, you know what? It won't take much for those thoughts to come back in because there were some doubts at certain points during the season about Brock Purdy, who, by the way, finished off the season with 2 touchdowns versus 4 interceptions in the last 2 games. And if Emil Purdy's not on, if Brock Purdy's not on early in this game, that's a big problem for the 49ers. And I'm kind of banking on there maybe perhaps being some problems there.
Well, Green Bay doesn't stop the run. So I think this could be a situation where if Purdy's not on, and this is my only fear for my pick, I mean, it'll be very good for yours. 40 Shanahan makes adjustments and says, we're just going to grind them into
just going to run the rock. That
gonna
would
run
be
the
my
rock.
fear. That would be my fear. But then that also kind of keeps the game a little close to the
That's
best.
what I mean. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't play for what I want. But so the official show pick here is for all you people out there, you could be confused because we rarely do this on the show, but you can tell we don't script this. We're on the opposite side of this game. I have officially picked the 49ers minus 9.5. Chad has officially picked the Packers plus 9.5. So now we roll to Sunday early window, 3:00. We got everybody who isn't a fan of anybody right now, if your team's out of it, seems to be a Lions fan.
Yeah, and I should probably talk first here on this.
Yeah.
This is a very difficult game for me to pick here. A part of me says, hey, that Detroit Lions team looked pretty strong, especially in the face of a game against the Rams in which everyone and their mother was on the Rams. And Detroit went out there and really handled their business. I love the way that they looked offensively. There was no real hiccups there. They got themselves up and down the field. And when they needed to, they got the stops versus the Rams. Yes, the Rams did find some ways there. I was especially impressed with the way that they held the Rams running game in check, because you could see that the Rams really wanted to get that going. You got a big time running back who finished out the year probably the best back over the last 4 or 5 weeks, and they held that in check. And part of me says if they do that against Tampa, they should be the runaway winners here. However, this is Detroit, extremely brand new to the playoffs. I mean, like 30 years brand new to the playoffs and this level of being in the playoffs. And so now when you strap 6.5 points on them of expectation, what's going to happen with that football team? Tampa Bay comes in here as the gunslingers. No one expected them to be here. I mean, they backed their way into the playoffs and somehow they're in the second round. I think they had the fortune of running into a team that had receivers running into each other and guys dropping all over the place. I don't want to take anything away from Tampa Bay. Baker Mayfield does look good. He's hitting guys that open. He's feeling good. This looks like.
How do you think they'll handle the weather?
My God.
Tell the fans that there's a pool reporter that.
Emil, can you explain to me how? Listen, I don't want to go in on this young lady. I just, in my mind, thought, and really what we're talking about here is Todd Bowles, and he's such a man of grace.
Yes.
To field this question when he was in the press conference talking about the upcoming divisional round game as to how will you guys handle the weather in Detroit. The reports are that it's 13 degrees. What will you do if you have to face Detroit in the inclement weather? Todd Bowles, in just the most gracious way that he is. I would shudder to think what would happen if Parcells or Belichick got this question, just said, you do know that we play inside. And so, yeah, I don't know that we're going to have to worry about that too much other than getting off.
I'm sorry to get you off point. Go ahead.
No, but I mean, really. So yeah, they're looking well there. So I feel like this point spread is right where it needs to be. This could be a 6 or 7 point game.
Here's what I think.
Just be a wild blowout.
This is an official pick for me. I'm going to grab the Bucs with 6.5. A couple of reasons. Even though he's not the young gunslinger, I feel like Baker Mayfield unlocked something so far this year that's kind of, he's playing like the guy at Oklahoma, like just, cocky, the thing that would annoy you, like he plants a flag at the center of your field after he comes in and beats you at Ohio State.
You're an Oklahoma fan, you love it.
Right. And I feel like he's got that. And I think the noose may tighten a little on the Lions this week in terms of starting to feel the pressure because, hey, you're one game away from your first NFC Championship game since 1991, and you're at home and you're playing a Bucs team that's 10-8.
Yeah, the Lions were favored last week, but didn't they feel like the underdog?
They felt like the underdog, but I think in this game they're going to feel like it's a foregone conclusion. We should win. Almost like a lot of people thought with Dallas last week against the Packers. Like, oh, yeah, Dallas beat the next round. And I think this is a game where the Lions' weakness plays into Tampa's strength. If Tampa has one part of their defense that's their offensive line that's good, they have 2 good tackles. So that they can neutralize Hutchinson, and the back end of Detroit's defense gets loose. I mean, you can make throws. So this is a game, to your picks, where you like the points. I like the points because I feel like Detroit can even get ahead here, but I think Tampa Bay will keep chucking the ball. They've got some weapons outside with Evans. Baker Mayfield's a gunslinger. And I think, they could come in and even backdoor this if they have to. I think they're going to be in the game all afternoon, though.
Yeah, I could see anything happening there. And so if you told me the Bucs got in the back door, the Bucs had a lead late in this game, I wouldn't be surprised. So
I'm taking the Bucs plus 6.5, which takes us to the last game of the weekend and the end of our show. I'm just going to say I don't need a lot of analysis. I actually think the Bills might win the Super Bowl. That's how I feel this year. I felt like they were on the cusp of losing their season. They had to win that game against my Cowboys. They drilled them. And I think since then, the Bills are starting, they have little streaks where they do goofy things. I'll be texting you, like, what's Josh Allen doing with the ball? Okay, but I just have a gut feeling that this is their year. I don't know why. I feel like they finally get their first Super Bowl. And I think Kansas City is a team that they used their experience and the weather to beat Miami. Miami showed they weren't ready for that moment. The Bills are not intimidated by the Chiefs. And
Yeah.
the Chiefs have always had the advantage of playing this game in Kansas City. And that's not going to be the case this week. It's going to be a Buffalo. And I think the Bills get it done. I want the Bills minus 2.5.
Yeah, I'm going to agree here with you right off rip. I'll tell you that. This kind of reminds me of those Tampa Bay Buck teams back in the 90s, late 90s, that kept running into Philadelphia, kept running into the cold weather, couldn't get it done. And in that NFC title game, they finally overcame a cold weather game, beat Andy Reid's Eagles, and then went on to stomp in the Super Bowl. And I just get that same kind of feeling here. And this is the first for all of the greatness of a Patrick Mahomes, first road football game in the postseason. And this is one of the worst places in the world to have to go do that. And against a team that's kind of had your number when it's not been the postseason. Now they get you in the postseason in their place. And the way they have pivoted, because we thought they were dead after that Philly game,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
We thought they were dead. And it's just so funny how the fortunes of both teams went so far in the opposite direction that they have a head of steam and they're getting hot at the right time. And I just think it's now or never. Listen, man, if you finally get Kansas City in a year like this for the Chiefs, where this is not the strongest Chiefs team we've ever seen with Andy Reid, into your place and you don't cash this check, you may never cash that check again. And
I think they're going to cash it. And I think the Chiefs have some false confidence from last week. I think that game was over when it started.
yeah, the Dolphins weren't equipped.
They were. I sent you a note at halftime. That poor guy who coaches the Dolphins, he looked like he wanted to get a blanket when he came out of the locker
Yeah,
room.
not enough meat on
He
his
had
bone.
snot coming from his nose. His
Yeah.
glasses were fogging, and he's going, we did some things in the first half.
Yeah, memo to the Dolphins, win 13 games in your season so you don't have to deal with that.
So, okay, let me recap quick. We'll get out of here. Chad's given you 3 picks. He's going with the Texans plus 9.5. He's got the Packers plus 9.5. He's got the Buffalo Bills minus 2.5. In a rare thing on the show, I'm against him on the Packers game. I got the 49ers minus 9.5. Then I'm going to roll with the Tampa Bay Bucks plus 6.5. And I'm going to also take the Bills minus 2.5. Like we said last week, combined, we were 5-1. So hopefully we do something for you this week. And, you can flip a coin on the game we disagree with.
Yeah, we won't be undefeated, the both of us this week, unfortunately, but we can still bring you solid winners, just like we did last week. And we've been doing all season long. Amos, 62 wins for you, 62 for me, 62 and 42, 62 and 43. Man, God, where are you going to get that at?
For free.
Yeah, absolutely free. All right. So I hope you guys have enjoyed that as well as the podcast and the topics we talked about today. Hey, do us a favor on your way out here. If you haven't done it already, go ahead and subscribe to the show, whether you're watching it on YouTube or whatever you're streaming it on, whether it's Apple Podcast, Anchor, Spotify, whatever you're using to stream this right now. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss out on another great show like this one. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Bovada Sportsbook, because that's where it's going down, whether you are hopping in on the NFL action or you're jumping into the NBA games that are going down, NHL, golf. They've got it all at Bovada Sportsbook. Check out the link in the description. Visit them as well. That will really help us out here on the show. All right, we're out of here. We'll have fun talking about the games next week and whatever goes down off the field. Someone's going to get hired, fired. I feel strongly both of those things are going to happen in the next week. And when it does, we'll be right here to talk to you about it. So we're gone. For Emil Calamino, I'm Chad Wilson. Thanks for watching the Two Chumps Football Podcast. See you guys next week.